In boxing, there's 3 ways that you can hit hard. The first, brute strength, big arms, big muscles. Now, that's the most common way, but it's also the least effective. You can have arms like an oak tree. If you don't know how to throw a punch, all you're going to be good at is pushing people around. The second way is the best way, and that's to understand the fundamental techniques, the mechanics of how to throw a punch. An experienced boxer knows that your power doesn't come from here, it comes from here. Pushing off with your toes, using that power and that energy and letting it ride up your legs, into your hips, rolling through, letting it come up your back and into your shoulders, and then finally, at the end, letting all of that energy explode like a rocket out of your fist. That's the best way, because that is a skill. And like any skill, you can study it, you can practice it, and you can master it. And it doesn't matter where you begin, you can always get better than you are. Now, the third way, that's to be born with heavy hands. It's a fluke of nature. There's no science behind it. It's got nothing to do with the size of your hands. It's got nothing to do with how big of a person you are. Some people were just born with hands that the gods had dipped in diamonds. They can tap you like this, and it feels like they're hitting you with a crowbar. Now, it doesn't matter if you ever put on a pair of boxing gloves in your life. If you have heavy hands, it's something you're born with, and it's something you're going to die with. It's got no practical applications except hurting people. And if you have heavy hands and you master the art of throwing a punch, suddenly you're going to be better than 99% of the boxers in the world, because other people are not going to be able to stand in front of you while you're throwing punches. That was me. I started boxing when I was 6 years old, and I had an amateur record of 126 wins and 5 losses, including a stretch there where I won 100 straight fights in a row without a loss. When I was 16, I fought in the National Golden Gloves Tournament in Knoxville, Tennessee. Now, in boxing, 16 is the age that a boy became a man. So before that, 15-year-olds are fighting 15-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 13-year-olds, and so on. Make sure everybody's fair. Once you turn 16, they throw you in with the sharks, and you need to be good enough to compete against grown men. No matter how good they are, you've got to be able to hold your own. So in Knoxville, at that National Golden Gloves Tournament, it was the first time I was going to be competing against grown men. And in 1 week, I fought 5 times against some of the best boxers in America at my weight class. And I won all 5 of those fights by knockout. A month later, I turned professional. I was 16. And probably violating all kinds of labor laws. But, you know, it was easier back then to pay somebody $20 to look the other way if you didn't have your birth certificate. And I was good at it, so I was doing something I was good at and making money, and I was able to help my parents out and buy some things for myself and stay at it, and I was committed. And in 4 years of doing that, I had a record of 26-0 with 23 wins by knockout. In 1994, I was ranked number 1 by the World Boxing Association as their middleweight contender. And that got me a chance to fight for the championship on March 26th, 1994, at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, against this boxer, the champion, a guy named Special K. Kelvin Clark from Baltimore. It was on HBO. And this was a huge deal for me. You know, the MGM Grand Garden had just opened up a couple of months earlier for the Julio Cesar Chavez Frankie Randall fight. And they had designed it to be the arena for boxing. They wanted it to be the venue. If you had a big fight, it was going to be at the MGM Grand Garden. And they wanted me fighting for the world title to be one of those first fights there. I mean, I was so excited and so scared. You know, I remember, you know, they let you pick the music that you play when you come to the ring, and I picked House of Pain, Come and Get Some of This. Which, you know, it's embarrassing now, but it was a song that I really liked. You know, I would listen to it when I did my road work in the mornings. And I get them to play that song, and it's coming out of the loudest sound system I've ever heard, rattling through my bones. And I remember being scared and coming through that curtain out into the arena, and this spotlight comes on me. And as loud as that music was, just like that, it got drowned out by the roar of 20,000 people cheering for me when they saw me. It gave me such adrenaline, man. It was such a rush. I felt like I could beat anybody, you know. So I make my way to the ring, and the closer you get, you know, you can hear the buzz of the lights over the ring, and you can start to smell the leather and the sweat from the preliminary fights. And there's this confusing thing that happens, right, where it sounds like somebody has left a TV on, but it also sounds like it's coming from the back of my head, and I can hear HBO's boxing commentators, Jim Lampley and Larry Merchant. And I'm like, where is this TV coming from? I shouldn't be hearing a TV here, right? And then I realize it's not a TV. They're sitting right there ringside, right? And they're talking about me. And I remember Larry Merchant describing my devastating right hand. I'll never forget that, man. And then Kelvin Clark comes to the ring. I was 20 years old and he was 27. I'd been watching him fight on TV since I was a kid, and I'd seen all of his tapes when we were getting ready for the fight. I saw him face to face at the weigh-in, but seeing him there in the ring with this sheen of sweat, you know, and the glare from the lights on him, it was startling, man. And I would never have used these words then, but man, he was beautiful. You know, he was a beautiful human being. He was like an angel, you know. And I remember thinking, like, it was like fighting a Lamborghini. Like, you wouldn't expect something that beautiful to kick your ass. But, you know, he did kick my ass. People don't remember that when they think about that fight. That he was the champion and he fought like the champion. And he kicked my ass as much as I kicked his. And I remember, you know, the third round, he lands this left hook to the body, and I felt like my insides just collapsed. And I still feel that shot. And I don't doubt, you know, if he lands that punch 30 seconds earlier, I don't make it out of that round. It was close enough to the end of the round that the bell rang, and I was able to get back to my corner and pull myself together. But, you know, the ninth round, that's what people remember. They don't remember the rest of it. They remember the ninth round. I know the writers at Ring Magazine said they wanted to vote that as their round of the year for 1994, but they felt it would be in bad taste after the way things ended. And, you know, I don't know what Kelvin Clark's corner told him before that round. I think they probably thought, you know, I'd never gone 12 rounds before. They didn't think I had the stamina. I don't know, but he came out to end that fight, you know, and he came out throwing bombs, and he hits me with one shot, and it just it triggers something in me, and I respond with a power shot of my own, I remember. And we fell into this groove that sometimes happens with fighters where we were just trading blows, and it was tit for tat. I would hit him as hard as I could, and I would give him the opportunity to hit me as hard as I could. One for you, one for me. One for you, one for me. Trading shots like that to see how long we can hold up. And I remember he throws this right hand, right, and I catch it with my glove here, and I see him coming with this left hook behind it, but he's a little bit too slow and a little bit too wide with it, and he gives me the chance to come underneath and over top with a right hand of my own. Now, when you're learning how to throw a punch properly, one of the things that they teach you is that this is not your target. This is not your target. Not here or here, not here or here. Your target when you're throwing a punch is here, the back of your opponent's skull. And the only way that you can get to that target is to go through the front of their face, 8 inches through their brain to hit it. And when I threw that right hand, I hit the bullseye. You know, you can look up the fight. It's on YouTube. You can watch that round. You can watch me throw that right hand. But something happens that you won't be able to see on the broadcast. You wouldn't have seen it, you know, if you were sitting ringside. It's something that you could have only seen in that intimacy that two boxers share in a moment of hand-to-hand combat. And it was something that I saw in his eyes. You know, this is a grown man. This is a professional warrior. He's the champion of the world. But when I landed that shot, something in him broke. And this man turned into a child, you know. And what I'm seeing in front of me is a small child begging somebody to come save him. According to CompuBox, the people that keep track of data in boxing matches, after I landed that right hand, I landed another 18 power punches unanswered before Calvin Clark went down. And he didn't get up. And they raised my hand as the WBA middleweight champion. And they give you the belt, you know, and it's heavy. It's got heft to it, leather and fabric and jewels and it's everything that I have been working for my whole life, and I'm holding it in my hands because I have made the dream come true. I caught the tiger by the tail. We went out to celebrate that night. I remember being in the casino with my crew. Everywhere I went, people were congratulating me, staring at me. Way to go, champ. Buying me drinks. I didn't drink, but people were putting a drink in my hand nonstop. And I was celebrating that night, so I drank. And I played games I didn't know how to play. I don't know how much money I lost on craps and roulette. Thinking I was Frank Sinatra because I was the champion of the world. You know, we stayed out till about 5 a.m, and I remember I was so sore. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck, and I went to sleep, and I slept most of the next day. When I woke up, I could barely move. I was hungover. And my phone's lit up. There's a message for me, and it's my manager, you know. And he tells me that Calvin Clark died at 3 o'clock in the morning at a hospital nearby. He never got up. I made almost $1 million for that fight. I made $11 million my next fight against Bernard the Executioner Hopkins, which I lost. 5th round, the referee stopped it because I was taking too many punches. One more title fight after that against James Lights Out Tony. I lost that one too. And by the time I retired from boxing, I made $15 million as a professional. And it's gone. It's all gone. You know, my record in world title fights is one win and 2 losses. My record in marriages, 0 wins and 3 losses. I watched all 3 of my wives walk out of my life. And I don't just mean that they left me. I mean, I have a very clear visual of all 3 of them turning around and walking away from me and never coming back. And for each one of them, I couldn't think of a single thing to say to make them want to stay, you know. I wouldn't want to be with me either. Most of the boxers that I grew up with ended up in jail or dead. The best ones ended up punch drunk. I'm the only one that made it to the top of the mountain. And I got nothing to show for it. People come up to me all the time and they want to talk about that fight, and I can't stop them. Why should I? They want to ask me what it was like, how I feel about it now. You know, I'm always under the microscope because of that one moment of my life. A couple of months ago, I got a Facebook friend request. I get those too. And I'm looking at it to see if it's somebody I know. And it's just some guy, some young guy. He seems like a regular guy, you know. It's got pictures of him with his family. He's posting memes. He's showing pictures of his meals. And then I get to this one photo, right? And the post says, "Happy birthday, Dad. I love you." And it's a picture of Calvin Clark holding this little baby, you know. And I realize the guy who's sending me this friend request, David Clark, this grown man, is the baby that Calvin Clark had when I fought him. And I wanted to accept his friend request, and I couldn't do it. I put my phone away. I thought, well, I'll do it later in the day, or I'll do it tomorrow. I kept putting it off, and it doesn't make any sense, and I don't know why. I just couldn't do it, you know. And day after day, I'd look again. I'd see that notification, and I'd take a look at his wall, and I'd look at his pictures, you know. And I'm seeing this guy with the children of his own, being the father that Calvin Clark never got to be because of me, you know, holding the grandbabies that Calvin Clark never got to hold because of me. And what do you say? What do you say to him? I can't expect him to understand. I can't expect anybody to understand. I never felt any animosity to Calvin Clark. I never wanted to hurt him, and I never felt like he wanted to hurt me either. Even in that 9th round when we were trading punches like that, it felt like we were going someplace together that other human beings never get to go. Like we were walking to this place inside of us, hand in hand, to this darkness, this beautiful, beautiful darkness. And we were looking deep inside and trying to see how close we could get to it, you know. And I came back and he didn't. And I want to tell his son that I'm sorry. I know what I've taken from him. And I want him to forgive me, but not for me. I want him to forgive me because I know how much harder I've made his life already. He shouldn't have to walk around with bitterness or anger or hatred because of me. I want him to face the world with love in his heart. I feel like the world needs that. Earlier today, I accepted his friend request and I sent him a message and I wrote, "You are a beautiful human being, just like your father."